I'm Mike Knopfwood, a 28-year-old businessman. I work for a pretty big and famous company in my hometown. I'm part of the sales team, and there's a business drinking party almost every night. The clients seem to really like the place I chose for the gathering, so I think it was successful. I felt a sigh of relief. My boss is whispering something to Rico. Looks like he's planning for the next place. They're probably going to a fancy venue with attractive ladies, along with our client's CEO. I guess the regular employees are calling it quits here. We hailed taxis for the higher-ups to send them off. Our tipsy CEOs seemed to be in high spirits. We made sure nothing was left behind with the seniors, and then us regular employees dispersed. My colleagues were heading off to a bar, but I'm not much of a drinker. Despite the invite, I declined and decided to head home early. I wanted to enjoy my only hobby, gaming, when I got home. As I was excitedly heading home, I heard a dispute in a side alley off the main street. Normally, I'd ignore it, but I stopped in my tracks when I heard a young woman's voice. Squinting into the dark alley, I could see a girl about college-aged and a man about my age arguing about something. The man seemed to be forcing the girl, and she was clearly uncomfortable. "Hey, stop that." She tried to keep her voice down, but it was clear she was rejecting him. The man was holding her arm, seemingly trying to forcefully take her somewhere. The girl appeared to be about the same age as my younger sister. "Hey, maybe you shouldn't be forcing her like that," I called out quietly toward the back of the alley. The man turned around and glared at me. From just one glance, I could tell he was wearing a well-tailored suit. His tie was designer-made, and his leather shoes were nicely polished. He seemed like a rich kid. "Back off. You're out of your league, man," he said. Quite a mouth on him for a privileged kid. Maybe he's a rich brat gone bad. I sighed inwardly. I just wanted to go home and play games. Stepping into the alley, the humidity instantly rose above the level of the main street. It was probably damp air from the air conditioners attached to both sides of the buildings. But she seemed uncomfortable, and he was acting like a thug, so I couldn't just ignore this. While saying that, I nonchalantly grabbed his hand, shielding the girl behind me. Talking circles around people is something I'm good at. "Hey, Ginny, do you know this guy?" The man yelled as he tried to violently grab the girl's shoulder behind me. I shielded her, making sure his hand didn't reach her. He clicked his tongue and then attacked with a pretty heavy punch. I absolutely hate violence. I was thrown against the wall of the building, hitting my back hard. I tasted iron in my mouth. The man looked down at me, now slumped against the building wall. There was a vulgar grin on his face. These kinds of guys never stop at one punch. He's the type who gets excited by violence. He inflicts another blow. Just as I try to escape, a kick to my stomach makes me groan. *C. Just as I thought *, I nearly laugh at how well I've read him. Just as the man clenches his fist again, the girl thrusts her smartphone screen in his face. "If you don't stop, I'm calling the police. Are you planning to make your dad clean up the mess again?" She says, her voice so cold it's like she's mocking him. Maybe he didn't believe she'd actually call the police because his fist clenches tighter. Without hesitation, she starts using her smartphone. From the speakerphone, you can hear the voice of a police officer answering a 911 call. He keeps asking, "What's your emergency?" The man lowers the fist he grazed and clicks his tongue. "Don't run, Jenny," he says before turning and running off down the alley. She ends the call only after making sure he's gone. "We should move before the police arrive. You don't want any more trouble, right?" She grabs my arm to help me up and then lends me her shoulder as I wobble. Her side profile is stunning, but with a hint of darkness, a pure yet mysterious beauty. By the time we reach a bench in a park away from the alley, we're both sweating. She makes me sit on the bench and buys a couple of bottles of water from a vending machine. She hands me one and uses the other to dampen her handkerchief, gently wiping my face. I take a sip, but the water burns my mouth. I can still taste iron. Looks like I've cut the inside of my mouth pretty badly. "We need to get you to a hospital. You're bleeding," she says, her worried look evident as she holds the cold handkerchief to my wounds. "I'm fine. It's not as painful as it looks. Are you hurt anywhere?" At my words, her eyes open wide in surprise. Then, tilting her head slightly, she looks at me puzzled. Asterisk, did I say something strange? Asterisk. Just as I was about to open my mouth again, her slender hand moved swiftly. Before I knew it, my suit jacket was whisked away. Excuse me? I was flustered, suddenly stripped of my jacket. I'll get it cleaned and return it. I'm sorry, but can you please provide your contact details? She said in a polite but firm tone. She quickly tossed over the items that were in my pocket. When she found a business card holder in an inner pocket, she smiled. I'll take a business card if you don't mind. Pardon me. She promptly pulled out a card and tossed the holder back to me. She held the business card for a moment before slipping it into her bag. I'll be in touch. A call from a college girl must be a nightmare. Give me your number, she said with a smirk. It seemed like I had run into a charming thief. As I told her my number, she repeated it without writing it down. Then she introduced herself. My name is Jenny Garcia. Just as I was about to tell her the cleaning wasn't necessary, my phone started ringing. The caller ID prominently displayed my boss's name. The message was urgent. Our client CEO was drunk, and I was needed for help. Sorry, I've got some work to do, I said, rushing off and leaving her in the park. It was regrettable, but I had no choice. She watched me silently as I hailed a taxi and got in. A week later, I received a call during my lunch break from an unknown number. I had a hunch it might be her. The cleaning is done, so when can we meet? Jenny's voice confirmed my guess. I told her I would be free after work tomorrow. I'll send you the meeting place via text, she said before hanging up. The meeting place she texted was a restaurant I wasn't familiar with. Her message added, asterisk as a token of my appreciation, let's have a meal asterisk. It seemed like a casual gesture, so I prepared a bit of extra cash in my wallet and headed to the designated restaurant the next day. But as I arrived, I was scared. The restaurant was not meant for students. It was far more upscale. I was led to a private room hidden behind a concealed door. Frozen in place, I sat rigidly until she arrived a little late. I'm sorry for making you wait, Jenny apologized, bowing her head. I barely managed to respond weakly. It's fine. She sat down gracefully and ordered the chef's recommended course. Dishes I had never tasted before appeared, delighting both my eyes and palate. Drinks were refilled at the perfect moments, and the friendly waiter helped ease my tension. By the time dessert was served, I was captivated by the experience. The final dessert, a cake, was placed in front of me, while cheese was served before her. Being a lover of sweet things, I was in heaven. This is the best cake I've ever had, I exclaimed. You're not having the cake? I asked when I noticed her dish untouched. I don't like sweets, she admitted, her face darkening slightly. I used to be fine with them, she added with a smile. Taste changes as we grow, and not every girl loves cake. I shrugged it off. Is that so? During the meal, we talked about many things. The guy who had bothered her in the alley turned out to be her fiancé. She mentioned marrying him right after graduating from college, but she didn't seem happy. I could tell something deeper was going on. Aren't you too young to be getting married already? I blurted out. Jenny merely smiled awkwardly, not saying a word. Her smile felt resigned, and I sensed a knowing smirk behind it. In just 2.5 hours, I found myself wanting to know more about her. As I reached for my card to cover the bill, dreading the amount, I was told it had already been paid. It's on me, as you helped me, she said with a smile, handing me my freshly cleaned jacket. As we left the restaurant, she quickly said goodbye and began to leave. Wait, I blurted out, desperate to keep her from leaving. I have a proposal. Jenny, no, Christine, slowly turned around. The sight of her looking straight at me was breathtakingly beautiful. If you're getting married soon, let's do the things you won't be able to do once you're married, I said. She looked surprised, her eyes widening. It was a bold proposal, but it was all I could think of. Jenny, set to marry that guy right after graduation, clearly wasn't thrilled about it. So I thought, why not enjoy her freedom until then? I wanted to see her smile, preferably by my side. What proposal, she said, her voice filled with a hint of disbelief. Suddenly, I felt embarrassed. So, is it a no-go? I asked timidly. Jenny shook her head. Where are you taking me for our fun day out? She asked with excitement. I was relieved to see her anticipation. Well, let's start planning then, I said, and she nodded in agreement. Just like that, she smoothly linked her arm with mine. Thus began our little game of playing lovers. From that day on, Jenny and I went on many dates to various places. There was no rule about who should ask, but it was always me inviting and her accepting. Through our countless outings, I learned so much about her. She was more sheltered than I had imagined. At the aquarium, she was overly excited and childishly wanted to touch the penguins. At the zoo, she fussed about wanting to take home a baby lion. During horse riding Guinea, an experienced rider left me behind and ran into the forest. I felt awkward when she showed up in a summer dress for the county fair, and I ended up buying cotton candy-os 3 times the size of her face, only for her to remember she hated sweets, which made me burst into laughter. Her persona was completely different from when we first met, and I was constantly surprised by her. One day, we visited a solo exhibition by a female woodcarver who specialized in animal sculptures. Jenny enjoyed sitting on a life-size orangutan carving and playing with the kids. I found the scene heartwarming as I leaned against the wall watching. Oh, teacher? Hello. Suddenly I heard a familiar voice and turned to see a grinning boy. Hey, are you here with your family? I asked, noticing a girl holding his hand. He nodded with a hearty smile. You're a teacher. Jenny, who had just returned, asked with curiosity. Oh, are you the teacher's girlfriend? He's a boxing teacher, the boy responded eagerly. In fact, I'm good at boxing, and I teach grade school kids at a gym run by an old college friend. Jenny stared at me in surprise, having just learned this side of me she hadn't known before. It was quite embarrassing, being stared at so intently. Jenny watched the boy energetically say goodbye and run back to his parents. You could have hit back, but you didn't, she murmured to herself. I knew she was talking about the time we first met. Why didn't you hit back? She asked suddenly, her tone serious. Taken aback, I looked at Jenny. Her face was focused and intense. I just don't like hitting people, I confessed. It may have sounded contradictory, but that was how I truly felt. I knew the pain of hitting someone and being hit, and that's why I avoided violence. I think that hesitation is the reason I was always the runner-up, I continued. During my school days, I came second in every competition. I could never fully commit to winning. Every time, I felt sorry for my family who was always cheering for me. Jenny's eyes didn't waver. Would you say the same thing even when you absolutely need to hit back? She asked coldly, her voice echoing the icy tone from when we first met. I felt a chasm growing between us as if we were standing on opposite cliffs overlooking a deep valley. Her question pierced me, and I couldn't answer. Ever since our date at the art show, I had lost contact with Jenny. A week had passed, and there had been no response to my calls or emails. She used to answer on the first ring. I started to worry that something had happened, or that maybe I had been written off because I couldn't answer her question that day. I grew anxious to see her again. Just as I was about to try calling her one more time, a colleague called out to me. He delivered a message that the director wanted to see me in his office. I hadn't made any mistakes at work, so I couldn't figure out why I was being summoned. I put on my jacket, knocked on the door, and entered the office. Inside, the atmosphere was tense. My boss, the director, the CEO of a client company, and one more person were seated. My heart dropped. The man sitting on the sofa, casually leaning back, was the same man who had been harassing Jenny. I'm disappointed in you. Trying to steal my nephew's fiancée, the boss said coldly. So the man who had bothered Jenny was the boss's nephew. My mind reeled as the pieces clicked into place. The client company's CEO also looked stern, and as I stood there dumbfounded, the boss continued. Jenny is the daughter of our client company's CEO, and she's engaged to my nephew. Their marriage is important for strengthening the partnership between our companies. I was taken aback, trying to process what he was saying. Was this some sort of business deal? It seemed like they were insisting on this marriage purely to expand their companies. So, in short, the CEO's nephew desperately wants her, and he got the company involved, right? The words slipped out before I could stop them. The temperature in the room seemed to rise dramatically. The CEO of our client company, who wasn't known for having the best reputation, glared at me. I had heard rumors that the current CEO had kicked out his own brother to take over the company. Now it seemed like he was orchestrating this forced marriage to solidify his power further. He had mistresses here and there and ran the company recklessly, or so the rumors went. That's enough. I want you to quit the company. We can't afford to keep a thief cat in the company, the CEO said. I'm disgusted by the CEO's ridiculous comment. Next to that, the CEO of the client company is nodding deeply. He says he can't do business with a company where thief cats are present. Personal life and work are separate matters, I thought, annoyed at the nephew grinning at me. I say to the boss, I don't want to give up on myself, who has been working hard till now here. I thought this is the time to become desperate. I'm fed up with giving up on Ginny and my job. The CEO snaps, I'm not interested in your opinion. This is my company and I don't need you. He points to the exit door and tells me to leave. At that moment, the door he pointed at opens without a knock. What the hell? We're having an important conversation. The CDO immediately yells at the person who opened the door. However, the next moment, everyone in the CEO's office was stunned and couldn't move. It's been a while, Uncle. My father sends his regards, Ginny said to the CEO without a smile. The boss's nephew, my fiancé said, is stunned. Was it you, Uncle, who was secretly sniffing around me? Or was it my fiancé? It wasn't until Ginny told me that I realized the CEOs found out about Ginny and my relationship because someone was sniffing around us. Probably someone in this room hired a detective and investigated, and I was caught out. You're also to blame, meeting secretly with Mike. It's irresponsible behavior while engaged, the CEO added. Ginny snorts at his words. It was clear she was looking down on everyone except me. The CEO of the client company warns Ginny, don't meddle. Ginny looks at me and smiles a little. I'll handle this. When Ginny declared that to me, she threw a bundle of documents at the client company's CEO. You're fired, CEO Williams, Ginny said with cold, icy eyes. CEO Williams, flustered, flips through the documents thrown at him. With each page he turns, his face becomes paler. My brother is the CEO from today. Incredible. Ginny conspired with her real brother and took over their father's company, investing in her father's company from her own and gradually buying up shares behind the scenes. We'll take back my father's company, Ginny declared as she glanced at her fiancé, who was totally in shock, and thrust documents at him too. The words compensation were written on them. I'll claim damages for all the mental distress you've caused, Ginny informed her fiancé. Then her gaze shifted to our company's CEO, who flinched slightly. Mr. Mike, I will pooch you for our company. Brace yourself. I will bring down this place too, Ginny says, her mouth the only part of her that's smiling. Her eyes are not. Is this your idea of revenge? Hearing CEO Williams' squeezed voice, a big smile appeared on Ginny's face. If you compare it with what you've done to my family, it's nothing. The real hell starts now. In truth, Ginny isn't CEO Williams' daughter, but his niece. Her biological father was the CEO who was ousted by Williams. Jenny's father, having lost control of the company, died from a combination of stress and overwork. Seemingly her mother, who had been part of a loving couple, died of illness not long after. Only Ginny and her brother were left. Ginny was taken in by CEO Williams, while her brother was put into a facility. It's likely that Williams adopted Ginny because he thought she could be a useful pawn in the future. He probably never imagined that she would turn on him. Ginny had been patiently waiting for a moment of revenge. As CEO Williams collapses in defeat, Ginny looks at him once, then extends a hand to me. Welcome to our company, Mr. Mike. Just as she had declared, Ginny set out to destroy the company where I had been working. The employees trembled at the sight of her relentless advance with no hesitation or doubt. I started working as a secretary to the CEO at Ginny's company. The CEO is Ginny's real brother, Mr. James. He's the same age as me. The new job was tough in many ways, but somehow I managed. The company seemed to be changing into a more pleasant workplace, freed from dictatorship. I think the brighter expressions of the employees are proof of that. I would love to say everything is going well, but there's one thing that worries me. Ginny has been avoiding me. Ever since the incident in the CEO's office, she has been actively ignoring me. Even when we pass in the hallway, she just acts as if I don't exist. Just when I'm trying to find a way to talk to her, CEO James shows up. "Do you know what a Savannah cat is, Mike?" Confused by the unrelated topic, I tilt my head. A Savannah cat is a breed of cat born from the crossbreeding of a serval cat and a domestic cat. It's about the size of a dog. Depending on the breed, it is necessary to register with the local government to keep one. That large mountain lion-like cat, right? They're rare in Japan, I reply. Mr. James then asks me to somehow arrange for a Savannah kitten. As the CEO's secretary, it's not unusual to be relied upon for personal matters as well as work. James, being the same age as me, often makes unusual requests. I thought it would cheer Ginny up. She hasn't been her usual self lately, he says with a look of concern. Indeed, if I showed Ginny a Savannah cat, she'd be ecstatic. Sure thing. Mr. James is pretty indulgent towards Ginny. Understood, I'll look into it right away and prepare a cake that she would like. It's her birthday soon. When I heard cake, I was surprised. Ginny is supposed to dislike sweets. Mr. James should know that. Ginny doesn't like sweets and can't eat them, right? At my words, Mr. James seemed taken aback and sat down on the spot, scratching his head. I was startled by his sudden, strange behavior. Holding his head, Mr. James muttered, "That girl, what a fool." Apparently, when Ginny was little, she loved cakes. When her family got together for her birthdays, she would beg her father for various types of cakes. Even when the company was taken over, her father would still buy her a cake. Then the day after Ginny's birthday, her father collapsed and never came back. Ginny believes it's all her fault. Mr. James told me that she thinks if she endures her favorite, her father will come to see her. Mr. James never expected that even now, as an adult, she would still hold on to that wish. Take back the company. Crush the trading company that drove her father to ruin. Ginny, who coldly gets everything done, is still a young girl who just wants to see her father. When I think about how much she's sacrificed to regain happiness, I feel like tears will overflow. I promised Mr. James I would arrange the Savannah cat and then pleaded with him to tell me where Ginny was. I just wanted to talk to her. He told me she was at the personal exhibition we went to together, which was now on its final day. I drove to the exhibition, and in the room filled with the excited voices of children, I found Ginny. She was lost in thought, staring at a family looking at a wooden bear, seemingly enjoying themselves. Her profile was expressionless, yet it looked like she could burst into tears at any moment. Found her, I gently whispered, gripping her hand so she couldn't run away. Ginny, who looked back in surprise, had noticeably lost weight since I last saw her. "Why are you avoiding me?" I asked, and she shuddered at my question. I stopped her from trying to leave by tightly gripping her hand. With a resigned look, she relaxed and said in a small voice, "Because you hate hitting, don't you?" Ginny continued, thinking I despised her because of my aversion to violence. Her voice was shaking slightly. "I do hate unnecessary violence, but it depends on the time and place. I've changed my mind a bit. I spoke to Ginny as gently as possible. If it's for you, I'm sure I can handle it." Upon hearing my words, Ginny started shedding tears. She told me she feels terrible for affecting innocent employees' families by taking over companies. But she always acted tough, showing that the person she resents most is herself. She said she's prepared to carry all the blame and live her life that way. "Is there anything I can do for you?" I gently asked the crying girl. Then, in a small voice, she replied, "Stay by me like my dad. Don't disappear. Always be by my side." I wanted to hold her right away, but I restrained myself. Instead, I squeezed the hand I was holding. "Understood. I'll always be by your side. Ginny, can you smile at me every day?" In response to my question, Ginny cried and nodded many times. While watching her tears, I made a promise to myself. I would never make her cry again after today. I'd even import a Savannah cat if it was for her. Surely, she'd hug the big cat and show me a full-faced smile. The more, the merrier when it comes to family, right? I muttered, looking at the families around us. Guinea's face turned beet red. Isn't it a bit early for that? Not at all, I replied, thinking about our way home from the art exhibition. I'll stop by a jewelry shop on the way. As I looked at Guinea's blushing face, I thought about how far we'd come. Who would have thought that our meeting that day would lead to this? I had no idea back then. Now, I'm grateful to fate for our encounter.